Welcome back to Foundry Fastlane. I'm Connor, and today we will be doing another course from the learn.palantir.com AI Engineer track. That will be the deep dive, building your first pipeline. By the end of today, we should be able to take unstructured or raw data from various formats. That can be CSV, Parquet, or JSON. Clean that data, apply some table joins to create usable data sets. Ready? Let's jump in. Jumping back into the training, you'll see we are in the AI Engineer track. In our previous video, if you haven't seen it yet, we completed the speedrun your first end-to-end AIP workflow. Today, we will be doing our deep dive, building your first pipeline. Now, technically in this series, this will be our second pipeline, but let's just rock with it for now. Jumping into the training, I want to just level set on a couple of definitions before we start. You'll see in the introduction section, why are data pipelines important? In Foundry, pipelines are the backbone of the flow and transformation of data from its source into a state that's operationally valuable. Mastering pipelines is mastering the art of turning data into actionable intelligence. It's the difference between having a sea of indecipherable data points and a well-organized data set ready for strategic use. What is Pipeline Builder? Pipeline Builder is Foundry's key low-code, no-code tool for effectively creating and managing data pipelines. With Pipeline Builder, you can construct robust data processing workflows without the need for extensive coding, blah, blah, blah. So in this training here, we will be able to, if I zoom in a little bit, if it lets me, we will be able to clean raw inputs from a bunch of different Excel kind of inputs, some JSON, some Excel, some other formats, of customers, products, transactions, apply joins on the primary keys of those tables, and end up with 3 output data sets that will enable us to have sorted, enriched, clean data. With that, let's get started. As always, you can follow along in this video. Also try to scroll along to make sure you're reading up on the pieces that I miss in the actual learning plan itself. Let's dive in. So starting with the data pre-processing cleaning section, we will click into there, read through this introduction, kind of explain what we're going to do already. But really, let's start with downloading the data sources. So these are the 3 input data sets that we're going to work with, and this is the raw data. So as I explained, there's some CSV data, there's some JSON, there's some Parquet. You'll notice when you try to download the JSON, it opens in your actual training and kind of overwrites what you're doing. I recommend just copying this out, launching a notepad, save, paste that stuff in the JSON file into the notepad here. We're going to save this as a JSON file type in your download location with the rest of your files. And now we can continue. Look back here and we'll get back to the tutorial. Now that we have downloaded our source data, let's go ahead and create our project folder. Once you have created your project folder, click the new, and we're going to look for Pipeline Builder. We will just call this pipeline for now, and we can keep it on batch. Now, batch is when we're kind of uploading the files, as it sounds, in batches or kind of in an ad hoc nature, whereas streaming pipelines would be more real-time, I think refreshing at more of like a 15-second or more frequency. So we'll go ahead and click Create here. Now that we've created our pipeline, let's add the data we just downloaded. So let's go to Upload from your computer, and we will select the 2 besides the JSON. We'll do the JSON separately, and I'll show you why here in a second. We'll open these up, and let's rename these to something a little more readable. Customers raw, and this is products raw. We'll keep it selected as upload as individual structured data sets and click Upload. Next, let's add the JSON data set in. So again, we will browse and upload from computer, navigate to that data set. And the reason we did this separate is because this is going to be upload to a new unstructured data set, whereas the other ones were defaulted to something else. JSON is treated differently, and we're just going to have to deal with it in that way. We now have our JSON data set uploaded. We will go ahead and rename this to transactions. I guess I saved it wrong when I first did it. We'll do transactions. Now that we have our input raw data showing here, let's go ahead and format this a little bit. So I like to format my inputs a certain colorway. Let's go ahead and do like a goldish yellow and save. This is just something that we can do to, once we have more nodes in our data pipeline, easily recognize, what's inputs, where the joins are, and where the outputs are. So here we'll just do in the legend, I could type inputs. Before we proceed, and now that we have our color code here, let's do a quick high-level review of these data sets. So you can see if you click into them, at the bottom here, we have a little sample here, or show of what the data set looks like. Click into customers as well to view this one. Great, got some columns here. You'll notice in the transaction, that's a JSON. It doesn't have this previewed out yet. That's because we have not, extracted out of the JSON formula yet, but we can preview and see this is the JSON format of all the transactions that are part of that data set, and we'll just have to extract out of that into a table format. First, to begin our cleaning of the data, let's click into products. If we expand out this column a bit, we see some dots here. That shows us that that's white space. And we have some other columns in here, like let's say price, for example, that's string that probably should be of type double. So let's clean this up and start transforming our data. So we'll create a new transform. We'll call this clean products. We'll look for trim. That's just going to be trim white space. And what we're looking to put in here is product name. We can replace that, that's fine. If we were to give this a new variable, it would change instead of saying replace to new. But we'll just click apply. Second, let's find that price column. But first we need to cast. So to convert that price column that we kind of noted from string to double, that should be fine. And again, we'll replace here. So that's just going to allow us to use double functions rather than like string functions on our manipulation of that column within the data set. Go ahead and click save, and we'll close out back to the pipeline. We now see the two columns that we had edited are now put to the front of the kind of output sample here below. We've got our price column, which is now in double format. We have our product name, and if we expand this out again, we shouldn't see any of those white space indicators. Next, let's clean the customers data set. So before we go in, I want to show something real quick. So if we come into customer ID, click that little icon next to the column name and click view stats. This customer ID should be the unique ID. And if I, show here, we're filtering this column by descending count, we see here that there's a count of 2 for many of these customers. As I just stated, that's the unique ID, and that should never be the case for there to be, a duplicate of that ID. So that's something that we'll definitely want to clean up. So click customers, create your new transform. We'll call this clean customers. And for our transformation, we're going to look for filter rows. Within here, we'll set this first toggle to remove rows that meet the criteria. And we're going to set this to into columns from value. And we're going to click email is null and select treat empty strings as null. We'll add more conditions here because we're going to do a couple more values. We're going to do name and address. Once we have these selected, we can go ahead and click apply. Now, if we click into output table, we can see our output table rendering. If we go into customer ID and do view stats once again, we should see that the duplicates have been removed, which we're still filtering by or sorting by descent count. So looks like we were successful. The next transform we will do in this transform node is flattening struct. So really what we're doing is we're taking the address JSON or the struct here, and we are kind of separating out the city, street, and state into their own columns as we rebuild the address in a more readable format. So to start our struct flattening, we're going to search up flatten struct. For expression, we're going to look for parse JSON string. For example data, that's exactly as it sounds. It just wants an example of the JSON schema. So if you right click below into the address column on any row, it's got to be in that specific address column. Copy any of the data, and click copy it, paste it in there, and click generate schema. Now we can see it automatically recognized city, street, and state. Next, all we need to do is click in JSON here, and we will click address. I think we changed the separator to just be white space, and we can click apply. Now below in our output, you'll see we now have city, street, and state columns. This will help us as we rebuild our full address. Following out our broken out city, street, state, we're going to concatenate those back into a working address. So search up concatenate string. For our separator, we're just going to do comma. And for our expression, we'll go street, city. We'll add one more item, and we'll look for state. So these are 3 fields that we'll use to rebuild our address. And I actually don't want a new variable here. This is this case where a new variable would be created if I continued. But I'm actually going to go ahead and do address. And that'll replace the existing column. Now we can click apply. Now below, we can see, if I expand this column out a bit, we now have human readable and formatted addresses right here in the address column. Lastly, now that we have our address column formatted correctly, we really don't need the city, street, state columns anymore. So what are we going to do? We're going to drop columns. City, state, state, and street. City, state, street. Click apply. We'll take one last look at the output. Looks good. We have our address and none of the filler columns that we used to manipulate the data to get there. Perfect. Now we should be good here. Let's save, close, and we are back to the graph. Lastly, let's clean our transaction data. So if you remember, this is the JSON file. As you can see below, there's no rows here. So our first transform will be extracting rows from a JSON file. Before I get into that, let's rename. Next, we can go into preview. You'll probably remember this from our last iteration of destructuring the JSON schema here. But you'll copy out a record from the JSON and click generate schema. We will keep this schema as a struct. You'll see all of the major schema items from the actual JSON file itself pulled correctly. The only thing we want to do is check that. Really all this means is that each JSON record is going to be on one line. Then we will click apply. Now at the bottom of the screen in our output, we will see we now have an actual table to work with rather than the JSON schema. Last thing we want to do here is cast this transaction date from string to a timestamp. We will change our type from the pre-populated date to, scroll down, timestamp. And here, if you want, in the tutorial, it takes you through how to like AI, no code, just natural human language, process a request. But really, we're just going to convert this to date time format. And for our time zone, this should default to yours, your current time zone. I'm going to choose New York. That's my current time zone. Now that that's all complete, we're going to replace the transaction date column. That's fine. Click apply. Now we can see where our transaction date below is showing as timestamp. The other piece that sticks out to me here is units should be a double, not string. Also, we have some just filler columns here that really don't play a point here, so we'll remove those. Again, let's go cast. We'll select units, and the type we're casting to is a double. And we're going to replace. That's fine. Click apply. And lastly, let's drop columns. And we can just select from here _air and _file. Click apply. We'll take one last look below. Units is now double. Our timestamp is effective. And we dropped the useless columns. So we can then, from here, click save and close back to the graph. Before continuing any further, I want to apply some standard formatting here to stick in line with my best practices. So for one, you'll notice I formatted the coloring for the cleaned transforms to just be white rather than the input gold. Second, just to keep aligned with the training and avoid confusion, I want to structure my page here the same way as the training does, so we don't have any mix-ups. So now we are ready to start the join portion of this data pipeline, where we will join customers, products, and transactions. To begin our join, let's click on Clean Transactions. Instead of the transform that we've been using, let's do join. We'll see our left is Clean Transactions, and our right, we're going to select on the graph, and we will select Clean Products. Click Start, and this is our kind of join manager here. For our match condition, we're going to select Product ID. We're going to come down below, and to avoid any column collisions that may occur, we're going to add product underscore as a prefix. Lastly, let's make sure we have selected product underscore variation ID as well. And let's name this thing. Once you've named it, let's go ahead and click apply, save, and we can close out to the graph. Now, previewing our join here, we can see we have 10 columns with the product underscore prefix here for the ones that were joined onto the transactions table. Next, let's replicate the process of joining for transactions and products joined table with customers. This time, we're joining on customer ID. We do not need a prefix for this join, and we can click apply. From here, if we scroll over, we will see the additional fields that were added, and we can go ahead and save and close. Before creating our output datasets now, let me just rename this one that I forgot to. We'll call that one Transactions, Products, and Customers. So first, in the training, we will want a dataset for both transactions, products, and the all-encompassing dataset. So let's get started. We will click Add Output, New Dataset. Can give it a name here. This one will just be transactions and products. And the thing I want to note here is just for user interface of the data set here, you generally will want to have some sort of unique identifier closer to the beginning of the data set. So let's just drag those IDs up front. That should be fine. And I think we can then go ahead and click Save. Next, let's repeat for the all-encompassing set here. This will basically have our transactions, products, and customers data all within one data set. Again, we can look at the customer product transaction. That all looks good. Let's add an output, new data set. Looks good to me. Perfect. Before continuing, let's actually make sure my naming is correct. So let's just add a identifier to these names to note that we have joined the data. Second, again, for almost readability of our pipeline, let's add a colorway for our output data sets. Lastly, let's go ahead and save and deploy. As you'll note, our two output data sets here are noted below, not yet deployed in gray. Once we actually deploy these data sets here, that will show differently. While this is deploying, let's click into this job list here. We'll see that there's an ongoing item here. We'll click into there, and that's going to launch a different part of Foundry. And this is where we can monitor our data set being published. After a few minutes, you'll see both of the jobs have succeeded, aka I've created my new data sets. If I jump back to the project folder, we will now see the two joined transactions products and customer inclusive data sets. I'll click into one of those here, and we can see just general kind of preview that we had been seeing the whole time in the pipeline builder, but with additional metadata on the side, who built it, when it was created, the type, how many columns, etc. In a future video, we will look into SQL preview, analyze data, and some of the other options that we have within this state. Coming back to the data pipeline, you'll see we now have deployed and built indicators under our output data sets. For the training, though, we wanted to investigate a scenario where we maybe had a faulty join. So if I come into the preview below and filter on transaction ID and view stats again, we will see that we have counts of 9 for many of the transaction IDs. A transaction ID should never have any duplication. Thus, we know we joined on something that maybe wasn't unique. So let's get into that join. We'll click back to transactions products join and click edit. For our match column, we're going to switch this from product ID to variation ID. Go ahead and click apply. We can bounce back to the chart here, and you'll see that the system automatically noted that changes have been made to the data sets, and we have changes not deployed posted underneath them. Bouncing back to our join here into preview, if we investigate transaction ID now, we should not see the 9 duplicative number we were seeing there. There should be a maximum of 1 here, and we are correct in that. Before deploying these changes, however, we're going to add one more transform and output data set for customer lifetime value. To do so, let's click into this transform, give it a name, customer lifetime value, and for our transformation, we're going to look for multiply numbers. Here, we will select units, as well as product underscore price. For our output variable here, let's change this to revenue. We will click apply. Next, let's look for the aggregate transform. Here we're going to do customer ID, address, and name. For aggregate expression, we're going to look for sum. Our expression is going to be revenue down here. And we will replace our revenue here, the variable. Click apply. We can close back out to the graph. Finally, let's create our output data set off of our customer lifetime value. Give it a reasonable name. Looks good to me. Make sure that we're formatting this. From here, we can go ahead and save and deploy the pipeline. Please note that we have a not yet deployed icon next to our new customer lifetime value data set. And the other ones that we had edited now have a change icon. Go ahead and click deploy. While this deploys, let's summarize our data pipeline. We took raw data in from transactions, products, and customers. We applied transforms to clean that data, joined the data sets to create very valuable outputs, and now we are deploying those to use in our future projects. The training shows more advanced ways of breaking out and segmenting your data pipelines to be more manageable, and I highly recommend you investigate that portion.